Kicking off another brand new hour here of the Steve Gruber Show. Glad you're along for the conversation. Glad you get up early to hear the truth. There's a warning here, though, a trigger warning. The Steve Gruber Show often results in extended periods of American pride, optimism, and uncontrollable enthusiasm for this country's future. Kicking off the live broadcast day on Real America's Voice, MTN, and reaching a growing global audience. Like I said, it's the Steve Gruber Show. Three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, is Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Georgia firebrand conservative, ready to join the race to unseat a Democrat incumbent in the Peach State? Looking that way, a senator, really? Number two, Senator Chuck Grassley says the federal district judges are about to get a wake-up call. He says their unconstitutional overreach is about to end. And number three, the Department of Homeland Security is now offering illegal aliens in our country the option to get their flight paid for if they self-deport, and the added incentive of $1,000 in spending money. What a deal. If it sounds like we're throwing money away, let me assure you this is actually far cheaper than anything else we can do. Here's what it currently costs DHS on average. Over $17,000 to arrest, detain, and deport someone here illegally. But DHS says with a stipend, paying for aliens to remove themselves is anticipated to cost only about $4,500 on average. It's a 75% savings. Border Czar Tom Homan is out spreading the word, by the way. Here is the gospel from Tom.
I think people are finally getting the message. If you leave on your own, you can take advantage of legal programs, come back. But we have to go through the process of form deporting you. There are mandatory bars against you for up to 20 years, sometimes forever. So, if you want to take advantage, come back as a worker, a tourist visa, a visitor's visa, a student visa, or have a U.S. citizen child if you have one, petition for you in the future. Leave yourself open to the opportunity of legal entry. Do things the right way. There's millions of people standing in line right now doing things the right way. Taking the test, doing the background investigations, paying their fees. They're sitting in the back seat. While millions of people are allowed into this country in the Biden administration that simply don't qualify for asylum.
Here illegally? It's not too late. Get your affairs in order. Work with ICE. Go to the CBP One app. Leave on your own. And if you don't, well, then the Trump administration is ready to prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. Daily fines up to $998 for those who refuse to leave after a final deportation order. That's what I call putting the pressure on. Self-deportation is just one of the tools in the toolbox of President Trump and the one and only Tom Homan as they take the fight to the front lines. The borders are issuing this warning to those obstructing justice in the name of sanctuary cities and states as well. Don't mess around. Listen.
So, the president signed an executive order just this week threatening to defund sanctuary cities for their policies. Why not just arrest the leaders who are harboring and shielding illegal aliens, actually terrorists, from deportation?
Wait to see what's coming.
Couldn't hear that real clearly. He said, wait till you see what's coming. Homan isn't playing games. He's got a plan. It's a big one. Under President Trump's leadership, we're talking about the largest deportation operation this nation has ever seen. Homan's been crystal clear. If you are here illegally, start packing. Because ICE is coming. And they don't think you can hide. Homan's got his eye on every corner of this country, and he's not stopping till our borders are secure and our laws are enforced. It's the kind of leadership we've needed for a long time, not the weak-kneed nonsense we got from the Biden administration. It was more than nonsense, Homan says. It was unprecedented and on purpose. Here he is again.
There are people in this world who really are escaping fear and persecution from the homeland, but they're sitting in the back seat too because millions of people cheated the system, come across the border and released in the United States. That caused a significant backlog in immigration court. And that wasn't by accident, it's by design. Let's just overwhelm the system so it takes 5, 7, 9 years to go through the whole process if they take advantage of the appeals process. They know exactly what they're doing. That's why they weren't in ICE detention. Because in ICE detention, they get a hearing within 35 days. But if we release millions of the country, overwhelm the system so they don't get a hearing in 5, 7, 9 years, then maybe there's a Democrat administration in power. Now we can have an amnesty. They knew exactly what they're doing. They're playing the long game. But we're going to beat them at it. We're going to ramp up interior enforcement operations and removals. We're going to force the law. We're not going to ignore the law like the prior administration did.
Yeah, that's right. Under Joe Biden's administration, we saw record-breaking illegal crossings, cartels running rampant, and fentanyl pouring into our country, killing our kids. That's not just negligence, that's betrayal. Thank God Trump is back in office, because in less than 100 days, we've seen a 96% drop in illegal border crossings. And that's what real leadership looks like, folks. The Democrat Party is still fighting for open borders. They are, unbelievably. AOC being the face of it lately. Here she is at a town hall in Queens just this weekend. Listen.
When we first did one of these seminars, Tom Homan, then acting director of ICE, said that he was going to threaten to refer me to DOJ because I'm using my free speech rights in order to advise people of their constitutionally guaranteed protections, and he may want to do it again today. And to that I say, come for me.
Seriously? Come for me? Look, let me explain this so you can understand this quite simply. It's not constitutionally protected to be in the country illegally. The Constitution was written to protect the people from the government, not to protect illegals that are here illegally. That's not what it's for. She thinks she's untouchable, hiding behind free speech to teach illegal aliens how to evade ICE and break federal laws on immigration. Let me break it down for you, Alexandria. You're not just advising people on their rights, you're aiding and abetting criminals. It's not free speech, it's obstruction of justice, and it's a felony. You can clutch your pearls and play the victim all you want, but Tom Homan isn't messing around. He's already exploring a case against you with the DOJ, and I say good. It's about time someone held these people accountable for undermining our laws while they're sitting in Congress and they're supposed to be upholding them. The nerve of this woman, acting like she's some kind of martyr for telling illegals how to dodge deportation. Newsflash, AOC, the Constitution you think you're hiding behind doesn't give you a free pass to break federal law. And she's not the only one. Dead set on protecting illegal aliens. Let's talk about Wisconsin's Governor Tony Evers for a moment. And this outrageous memo. It instructs state workers to consult legal counsel before cooperating with ICE. And if they can't get their attorney on the phone, tell ICE to go away and come back another day. This is how the governor of Wisconsin operates. He's telling state employees in Wisconsin to obstruct federal law enforcement. This memo goes on to tell workers not to answer any questions, give the ICE agents access to any kind of paperwork, or give them any consent to enter a non-public area. I'd like to point out that it was a Wisconsin judge, Hannah Dugan, who recently helped an illegal alien evade authorities in her courtroom by showing the illegal the back exit. Remember what happened to her? Yeah, she was arrested. And then she was taken off the bench by the very liberal Wisconsin Supreme Court. You can do what you want, Governor. But your own Supreme Court has already set the bar. And you're dangerously close to upsetting everything. We'll have more when we come back. Nice to see you today. By the way, follow me on Twitter. You need to do that right now. And on Instagram, Truth Social. Follow me in all these great places. Hit the like button, would you please? It's the Steve Gruber Show on a Tuesday. All right, so Judge Hannah Dugan was arrested for helping an illegal out the side door to evade justice, to evade arrest. And she was arrested, and then she was taken off the bench till further notice if she ever comes back. That happened by the Wisconsin Supreme Court, which we know is very liberal. And Tom Homan has warned that if you cross the line into knowingly harboring or concealing an illegal alien, that's a felony. Simply a felony. You'll be treated like the criminal that you are. And Governor Evers, here's what he said.
Now, I'm used to Republicans and the right wing lying about me. It comes with the job. But this time, these lies came at a cost. I haven't broken the law, I haven't committed a crime, and I've never encouraged or directed anyone to break any laws or commit any crimes. But when President Trump's hand-picked appointee, Tom Homan, was asked about me and this guidance after he apparently threatened to arrest elected officials across the country, he said, "Wait till you see what's coming. Wait till you see what's coming." Overnight, Republican lawmakers piled on, encouraging the Trump administration to arrest me. Showing threats like this should be of concern to every Wisconsinite and every American who cares about this country and the values held here.
No, Governor, what's chilling is your refusal to uphold the law while you shield illegals at the expense of Wisconsin citizens, which, by the way, are still American citizens. Homan's right to put the pressure on, and I hope he follows through, because we can't let sanctuary city nonsense undermine our national security or the rule of law. Even some sane Democrats acknowledge that Trump has handled the border crisis quite masterfully. Here's New York's Tom Suozzi. Listen.
As far as common ground, I want to give him credit that the border is much more calm than it's been in the past. I'm not happy with some of the ways he's done it, but it's much calmer than it was before.
Yeah, they don't like how he's done it. They never do. They never like how Donald Trump does anything because it takes a strong leader who puts America first to get anything done, and it ruffles feathers. I don't care. Somehow that's become offensive to Democrats, but it seems that a select few Democrat politicians realize that most of their constituents want secure borders. They want common sense. 2024 was a wake-up call for many. They thought they could campaign on just making Trump out to be the next Hitler, but that wasn't working, and now they've got to face the music. And I like the way this Democrat strategist puts it. Listen in.
The problem for Democrats right now is not a message problem. It's not a messenger problem. It's a product problem. The public, by overwhelming margins, does not want to see the welfare state expanded. That's a position that Democrats are associated with. And they don't like the extremism on cultural issues, whether you talk about open borders or race favoritism or pediatric gender transitions or soft on crime or agents of terrorists on college campuses. They don't like what the Democrats are selling, but the Democrats have become captive of the activist space, which is mostly white, mostly donors who have extreme positions, and they're mostly out of touch with where the majority of voters are. So the Democrats have got to change their product. It's not a question of younger voters. It's not a question of message. It's a question of moving to the common sense center.
Yeah. Lucky for us, we don't need their product because for now we have Donald Trump, and he's started a movement that will outlast these next 4 years. This is a battle for the soul of our nation, folks. Donald Trump and Tom Homan are fighting to protect our borders, our communities, frankly, our way of life, while the left, led by the likes of AOC and Tony Evers, would rather roll out the red carpet for lawlessness and illegals. And I say enough's enough. Let's stand with Donald Trump. Let's stand with Tom Homan. Let's take our country back. Deportation, prosecution, and a secure border. That's the future I'm fighting for. I know you are too. We simply must. We can't give in to any of this. Meanwhile, Senator Chuck Grassley warning these federal district judges of judicial overreach. That's right, all these federal district judges, 600 in all, are overreaching. Nationwide injunctions. You've heard all of this. And Chuck Grassley points out quite aptly that Donald Trump doesn't need permission from these judges to govern. He doesn't need permission from these judges to govern. That's right. And yet here we are. Chuck Grassley pointing out universal injunctions are an unconstitutional abuse of judicial power. He's right about that. Just this past week, a D.C. district judge issued a universal injunction blocking the president's executive order requiring voter ID or proof of citizenship prior to voting in national elections. That ruling ignores the idea that judges are not policymakers. Allowing them to assume this role is very dangerous, said Grassley. I happen to believe that he's right. But he's putting forth, here's a piece of legislation he's putting forth, the Judicial Relief Clarification Act. Putting an end to these universal injunctions. The Judicial Relief Clarification Act will keep you informed on what happens with that. If you're looking to take control of your health at the Wellness Company, they offer doctor-formulated supplements and personalized care to boost your wellness. Whether it's immune support, heart health, or just feeling your best every day, they've got you covered. Become a member and enjoy exclusive access to expert consultations, premium products, health content. Are you ready to start? Visit twc.health/Gruber now. Use the promo code Gruber. You'll save 10%. The Wellness Company, your health, your way. Go to twc.health/Gruber today and order. twc.health/Gruber in order today. By the way, programming note, tomorrow, 9 p.m. on X, we'll have a Spaces event. You jump on X, Twitter if you still call it that. Jump on X. I'll have Dr. Peter McCullough with me, 9 o'clock, Wednesday night. That's tomorrow. We'll be discussing all of this. We'll be discussing what's going on with Health and Human Services, how he thinks Bobby Kennedy is doing. We're talking about ivermectin and parasite cleanses. All of the fear-mongering when it came to the bird flu, which amounted to not a hill of beans, again, just like Dr. McCullough said it would not. Dr. Peter McCullough with me tomorrow, 9 o'clock. Write that down. I'll be right back. And don't forget to follow me on X today. I'm looking for your support. We need 25 new followers. I'll be right back. Here's a pretty good idea coming from Delta Airlines, by the way. They're adding new routes to college football towns for the fall, just in time for the big game, whatever the big game might mean to you. I think that's a pretty good idea. Delta Airlines adding routes, that's right. Extra flights for college football. More than 40 flights to be added to the schedule to help fans get to 25 cities and fill stadiums across the country. The largest ever college football flying schedule the airline has put together. College football, one of the great American traditions. Delta excited to help bring even more fans to the games that matter to them most, said Amy Martin, Vice President of North American Network Planning. With these increases, Delta is adding about 8,000 additional seats for customers, making it easier and more convenient for fans to be there for every kickoff, touchdown, and victory. These extra flights will help fans to get to their seats to watch some of the season's most anticipated matchups. LSU at Clemson, Texas at Ohio State, and a number of Notre Dame games as well. By the way, college football kicks off the end of August. Most teams begin the regular season Saturday, August 30th, and it'll end December 13th. Most flights take off on a Friday, return on a Sunday to allow fans a chance to go to the game, have a good time, and get home in one piece. Yeah, it's perfect. By the way, attention business leaders and entrepreneurs. This is a first ever announcement. a men's-only event packed with the most elite voices in business, leadership, and global strategy, built to give you the edge to dominate in life and business right now. Join Garrett White, the unstoppable founder of Wake Up Warrior. He's taking the stage at the Man in the Arena Tour. 3 stops this year. It's your blueprint to build, lead, and conquer. Seats are going fast. Don't get left behind. Lock in your ticket now. maninthearenatour.com. maninthearenatour.com. Step up, lead strong, win big. Join me for this extraordinary event, May 17th, Salt Lake City. Oh, the weather's going to be great. I'm going to be there. Happy to see you there, men. We need more men in this country to step up and well, be men. Again, maninthearenatour.com. If you're a business person or you just want to be around some strong men and talk about Christian faith and rebuilding the family, this is the place to be. maninthearenatour.com. Look forward to seeing you there. I'll take a break and be right back. It's the Steve Gruber Show. All right, you've heard a lot about what we're going to do with Iran at this point and what we're going to do going forward. Right? A lot of concerns about Iran, a lot of concerns about them supplying and funding the Houthi rebels and others. What is the plan for this administration? Well, my next guest, Alarisa Jafarzadeh, is the Deputy Director of the Washington office of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, NCRI, joining me now. Alarisa, nice to see you again. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Steve. Always a pleasure to be on your show.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. A lot going on. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth warning Iran on Wednesday of last week that it will face consequences for supporting the Houthis. And then after that, they went after the airport, Ben Gurion Airport, Israel, playing with fire clearly, because there will be counterattacks on that. It's so predictable, and the United States now very involved in this fight against the Houthis, which means we're basically in a fight against this proxy army of Iran. But Iran is at its weakest point since 1979, according to most observers. What can you tell us?
Well, I think you summed it up very well. First of all, the Iranian regime for decades has been at war with the rest of the world. That's why they built these proxies, whether it was Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Shia militias in Iraq, the Assad in power in Syria, and the Houthis in Yemen, you name it. There's a whole host of them spending billions and billions of dollars in empowering and funding and training them, targeting not outside of Iran, not Iranians, but also mostly the foreign nationals, foreign countries, trying to basically dominate the region in order for them to stay in power. Because the biggest problem the regime has is the situation inside the country. The people of Iran do not support this regime. There have been 9 rounds of major uprisings in Iran since 2018. People chanting death to the supreme leader, death to the oppressor, be it the Shah or the supreme leader, making it very clear that what they're looking for is not nuclear bombs, it's not missiles, it's not terrorism, rather it's democracy and freedom. They want to see the country flourish and move forward and live in coexistence with their neighbors.
How do we get there, though? Alarisa, as long as you have the regimes that have been there one after another since 1979, it has been a country that's been at odds with the United States, obviously, and the Western world, obviously, and many of its neighbors in the Middle East. Not well thought of in that neighborhood either, yet they continue to hang on. Now, I mentioned they're at a weaker point than they've been in a long time, according to a lot of people that observe Iran, and you obviously have a good handle on that. If it's at the weakest point since 1979, is there a chance? Is there a chance right now there could be a change? And I mean that without war. I don't think anybody wants war, but the regime continues to play chicken with that, I suppose. Is there a chance right now for a change at the top?
Absolutely. The developments in the past few years, particularly the past 2 years, has shown that the head of the snake of war and terror lies in Tehran, but so does the solution, to your point. This regime has never been so weak as we speak right now. They lost much of their clout in the region with Hezbollah and the Houthis. A lot of them have been shattered, weakened. Also, the biggest ally in the region, Assad, is gone. And so that's why you have a desperate regime. You have a weak regime that doesn't have the kind of leverage they used to have in terms of implementing their terrorism. But most importantly, inside the country, on a daily basis, every day, the Iranian youth that are gathered in what they call the resistance units belonging to the main Iranian opposition movement known as the MEK, they are the ones who are confronting the Revolutionary Guards. They were the ones who acted as engine for change during the uprisings. These uprisings, every time they come, the regime tries to suppress them, but every time they're longer lasting, more focused, and more enduring than the previous term. The main concern the regime has is that when the next round of uprisings come, would they survive? Because these uprisings in all 31 provinces of the country, you correctly said that there's no need for foreign boots on the ground or appropriation of money. All the United States or other countries need to do is to recognize the realities, the new realities on the ground, the weakness of the regime and the power of the resistance, the desire of the people to bring about change. They need to recognize that.
Let me ask you this. Let me jump in on this because recently we heard Donald Trump acknowledge that there have been talks ongoing with Iran. Now, we don't know much about these talks. Were you surprised to hear that? I was a bit surprised. Not shocked because Donald Trump will apparently talk to anyone in an effort to create some sort of a conversation, and conversations are better than war. But were you surprised when you heard that? And what would you like the president to be discussing in those conversations, or his administration, as it were?
I really wasn't surprised because it all depends on like what's the whole purpose of talks. If you, at the end of the day you're going to give pallets of cash to the Ayatollahs and legitimize their nuclear weapons program and allow them to flourish their terror proxies, of course that's not the right outcome, as we've seen the past 2-3 decades since actually we first exposed the nuclear sites of Iran that triggered the IAEA inspections in 2002. That has been the trend. But if the purpose of the talks, as the president said on Sunday and Meet the Press, that the purpose is to basically have the entire nuclear weapons program of the Iran regime dismantled, no enrichment capability, because that's the core of any nuclear weapons program, and that has been the case in Iran. They need to shut down all of those sites, and the only role that the IAEA, the UN nuclear watchdog, could actually play is to monitor the shutting down of those sites. That further weakens the regime. That further shows another angle of the weakness of the regime, preparing the grounds for change in Iran.
Now, coming up here next month in Paris, the National Council of Resistance of Iran, NCRI, your organization, will be meeting to discuss what's happening. You do it every year. For anybody that doesn't know, what is the National Council of Resistance of Iran? What are you?
Well, the National Council of Resistance of Iran is actually the parliament in exile that is seeking to bring down the Ayatollahs and seeks to have a free, democratic, non-nuclear republic form of government in Iran. It's consisted of about 450 members who operate like a parliament in exile. And they have some elements within the movement, like the MEK, have extensive presence inside the country that has been involved in change there. It's headed by a woman, Mrs. Mariam Rajavi, who introduced a 10-point platform for the future of Iran that says the ballot box is the only criteria for legitimacy, separation of religion and state, gender equality,
non-nuclear. We agree with that, by the way.
Peace in the Middle East. And that has extensive support in Congress and elsewhere.
Yeah, we'd like to see the Iranian people have the opportunity to vote for their leadership. We would support that. Alireza Jafferzadeh, greatly appreciate you being here. As always, my friend, thank you. And I will talk to you again soon. It's been a while, but with everything going on, we need to be talking more, sir. Thank you.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure, Steve.
There you have it. Alireza Jafferzadeh. The National Council of Resistance of Iran. They are the government in exile of Iran. Up next, the economy. How are you doing? We'll talk about it. Are you tired of being in pain every You know, I keep pretty close track of the markets to see what's happening, and they've been pretty stable for the last couple of weeks anyhow. The Dow yesterday, less than 100-point change. It's above 41,000. The NASDAQ at just about 18,000, and the S&P at 5,600. It's all pretty good news compared to where we were just, a couple of weeks ago when all those on the left were saying it's going to be the worst April since 1932. Death, destruction, doom. No, none of that. Joining me now, Nick Hopwood, founder and president of Peak Wealth Management. Peak Wealth has been run by Nick for years, helping high net worth individuals and small business owners take care of their money and move forward. Nick, good morning.
Good morning, Steve, and thank you for having me.
The worst April since 1932. I have to put on my dire voice to pull that off. Didn't really turn out that way. In fact, there's been a bit of a winning streak on the S&P 500. Where did April end up? Just give me some reference. Not the worst since 1932. Yes, we were down some, but a lot of it came back, didn't it?
Yeah, Steve, April was slightly down on the S&P. It was up on NASDAQ, up on a global basis, up for fixed income. So many people with a balanced portfolio were actually up for the month. And just yesterday, we snapped a 9-day winning streak, which does not happen very often. In fact, in the last 40 years, it's only happened 7 times. So with that 9-day streak, we're right back where we started on Liberation Day.
So we're at the same place. Well, I mean, the Dow was at 44,000. It's at 41,000. So there's still some money missing from the market, but it's not, it's not end of the world stuff like they were selling it over at MSNBC and Chicken Noodle News. But winning streak, apparently Warren Buffett wants to go out on a winning streak. He's retiring, he just announced, isn't he?
Yeah, so he's going to be staying on till the end of the year. We'll see what his role changes after that, but you got to give the guy credit. $168 billion net worth. He's truly a unique individual by any measurement. Drinking Coke, eating McDonald's every day, living in the same house since 1958. But one thing that I think we can learn from him is that he spends almost all of his time reading, and that's something all of us can do more.
Reading. He reads all the time, right? How old? He's in his 90s, I know that. And his longtime partner passed away not long ago. So maybe it's time to do, well, what's he going to do now that he retires, though? I mean, what he's still going to read, isn't he?
He can, take his trips to McDonald's and Dairy Queen and continue reading. Yeah. But I got to give the guy credit because, one of their biggest holdings was Apple. And they dumped about $600 billion worth of Apple stock onto the markets, pretty much at the all-time high last quarter. So, the guy's he's got that magic touch.
He can sense it. When he was dumping all that, why didn't we follow suit, Nick? Why didn't we pay attention and follow? Yes, I've often wondered about that because he turned a lot of his holdings into cash as well.
Right.
Over the last, I don't know, before this downturn. He had, not all of it, but he had put, I don't know, hundreds of millions of dollars into cash, so that took no hit at all.
That's right. They have over $350 billion of cash on the Berkshire balance sheet right now. So you have to wonder, when we see 20% drops like over the last month, why aren't they putting that to work? But, I'm not going to question Warren.
No, he's the oracle for a reason. We don't question his methods or his madness because he has won repeatedly. All right, so from here, it seems that the tariffs are now baked in. There's going to be some relief on that. And if the markets are stable now and some of these tariffs go away, whether it's the EU or Canada or Mexico or maybe a deal with China, I think that one's going to take a bit longer. I think we'll get there. If interest rates come down a quarter point or a half point throughout the year, all of this is going to stimulate the economy. Last week's jobs report was 177,000. Better than expected. Inflation's at 2.4%, better than they predicted. All indicators are that if we get some of these other things to line up, the markets, the investments could, I think, look pretty good, couldn't they?
They could be. However, imagine how you felt a month ago at this time, especially if you were nearly retired or if you are retired, relying on your portfolio for income. We just have this gift of this bounce back all the way back to the starting point. And so if I'm retired, I might be thinking about taking some money off the table and locking in this level for my income over the next year or two. Just yesterday, we had a meeting with a client who's retiring at the end of the year, and we've decided to bolster our cash reserves, give them an extra 100,000 of cash in the portfolio, because that's what we think we're going to need from the portfolio next year. So there's no do-overs in retirement. We don't want to be selling stocks when they're down 20%. We'd rather be selling right now if that's the position where you are in your life.
Understood. So, $100,000 in cash to be protected. I think I heard this discussion. This might have even come from you. Have your money available for the next 2 years. Know what that is. Protect that. 2 to 5 years, you can take a little risk, and if it's beyond 5, well, then you can put it in there and not be paranoid about it because it's got lots of time. Because if you had money that was available 5 years from now, looking at it in April, well, yeah, you didn't like what you saw, but you didn't need to panic either, right?
That's right. And Steve, sometimes we might sound like a broken record, but we've been through this: 2001, 2008, 2018, 2020, 22, and now 25. So we have the playbook, right? We just have to follow the playbook. And sometimes the emotions, when it's your own personal money, are overwhelming your decisions. But to have a partner as a CFP, a financial planner, to help you make these decisions and understand where you are relative to your goals, it helps you, kind of see that path and not shoot yourself in the foot.
Right. PeakWM.com if you want to find out more from Nick. By the way, congratulations. You have a partner who's now become a partner, right?
Yeah, we'd like to announce that Jim Pilot, CFP, he joined us in 2018, and now he's a full-fledged partner here at Peak. So congratulations to Jim. We're really proud of everything he's been able to add to the team.
Very nice. Jim Pilot, congratulations. Now a full partner at PeakWM.com. You can talk to Nick. You can talk to Jim. You can talk to those folks. Get a second opinion. PeakWM.com. Use the promo code Gruber. You'll always get a bonus with that. Nick, thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Really appreciate it. There you have it. Nick Hopwood. Always calm and collected, at least on the outside. Never let them see you sweat. We'll be right back. Here's something we're going to discuss tomorrow night with Dr. Peter McCullough on that space event. If you missed that, I'm going to be doing a spaces event on X. Live program beginning at 9 o'clock tomorrow with Dr. Peter McCullough from the Wellness Company. We're going to talk about this. Here's the headline from one of his people at the McCullough Foundation, epidemiologist Nicholas Hulscher. Says the number of Americans killed by COVID injections is now over 600,000. The cure was worse than the disease. There's a new report. This figure has now surpassed the total number of people killed in World War I, World War II, and Vietnam combined. We must stand in solemn solidarity and remembrance of the fallen, just as we have for those who fought and died in the service of our country, Hulscher wrote on Substack. 405,000 in World War II, 600,000 here, 116,000 in World War I, and 58,000 in Vietnam. That's 580,000 just over. According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, the deaths caused by vaccines is just 19,355. He says it's massively underreported and rigged. We'll talk about that tomorrow on Spaces. You'll want to catch that. You'll also want to put something great in your coffee cup to keep rolling every day. I use 1775 coffee. 1775 coffee. It's bold. It's grown in the mountains of Bolivia. It is single source, high altitude, premium coffee. This Peaberry here, one of my favorites. And right here, this one's really incredible. This is the Power Up Creamer. It's a bold blend of whey protein, bamboo extract, vanilla flavor. It's awesome. They fight over this stuff in my office. They do. Damn good coffee. 1775 coffee. You're going to love this. If you go to 1775coffee.com, use the promo code Gruber, save 10% on your coffee. Join me with a bold cup and a bold conversation again tomorrow. 1775coffee.com, promo code Gruber, save 10%. All right. We'll take a break and be back. Next hour, we've got Justin Goodman talking about the White Waste Project, the murder of beagles by Anthony Fauci in the next hour. All right, firing on all cylinders. Here we go into the next hour of the Steve Gruber Show. Glad you're along for the conversation. Trigger warning, you could have great patriotic reactions to this program and have a smile for the rest of the day as a result of being here. You have been warned. Welcome back to Studio G. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, after opening stores about every 2 miles for years, Rite Aid closing them all. Bankrupt. I mean, how badly do you have to screw up to close literally every store? You open hundreds, you force thousands of pharmacies to go out of business, mom and pop shops gone, and then you pull the plug. Number two, DHS is offering $1,000 and a plane ticket to self-deport. It's a good deal if you want to get out before getting kicked out. I like it. And number three, we talked about the truth about COVID coming from a Wuhan lab leak again yesterday in detail. If you didn't hear it, go back and listen to it, or go to stevegruber.com and read the article about it. On Monday, President Trump did something about it. In fact, it's pretty important. The lab leak, you see, was always true, just like I told you, beginning in March of 2020. Listen to what was said yesterday.
So it can leak out like from Wuhan, and a lot of people think that. I think I said that right from day one. It leaked out whether it was to the girlfriend or somebody else, but scientists walked outside to have lunch with the girlfriend or was together with a lot of people, but that's how it leaked out, in my opinion, and I've never changed that opinion. So it can leak out innocently, stupidly, incompetently, but innocently, and half destroy the world. Right?
That's right. That's right, Mr. President. It's
Mr. President, there are, I think, 3 leaks. BSL-3 and BSL-4 labs, our highest rated laboratories almost every week. There's no laboratory that does this right. There's no laboratory that's immune from leaks, and this is going to prevent those kind of inadvertent leaks from happening in the future and endangering humanity. The COVID outbreak cost 20 million lives and cost the world at least $25 trillion. And this executive order is a precaution against us being involved in that kind of research in the future.
That's great. Very honored to do this.
Cost the world $25 trillion. Did you hear that? $25 trillion. I mean, look what we spent here. $10 trillion spent in the United States. The rest of the world, $15 trillion more. A remarkable amount of money. While kids were locked at home, companies were shut down, hospitals were terrible, people had to die alone in nursing homes. All of it just awful. Coming tomorrow, I'll be with Dr. Peter McCullough for a special event on X, 9 o'clock tomorrow night, a Spaces event. Listen, follow me on X. You can keep up to date on all of this. Tomorrow night, Peter McCullough and I will be together. According to one of his colleagues, Nicholas Holscher, an epidemiologist, 600,000 Americans have now died from the so-called vaccines, the COVID jabs. More than World War I, World War II, and Vietnam deaths combined, which is about 580,000. He says we've lost 600,000. Here's how he says the most likely ways to die from the COVID jab. Sudden cardiac death, 35%. Pulmonary embolism, 12.5%. Myocardial infarction, 12%, which is another form of heart attack. Vaccine-induced thrombotic thrombocytopenia, VITT, 7.9%. Myocarditis, 7.1%. Multi-system inflammatory syndrome, 4.6%. Cerebral hemorrhage, 3.8%. He's been sounding those alarms since a bombshell new peer-reviewed study. And according to the study, based on the data from autopsies, 73.9% of the deaths after COVID vaccination directly linked to that jab. We'll be talking about that in detail with Dr. Peter McCullough tomorrow night, 9 o'clock. Don't miss it. On X. If you're not on X currently, get on. Be somebody. Be part of this conversation. You can ask questions, potentially. We'll get to as many questions there tomorrow as possible, but I'm excited to do it with Dr. McCullough. Tomorrow's going to be a very busy day for me. A lot going on, I can tell you that. Today's a lot going on. Investment in America. We talk about it some. We don't talk about it enough. Dramatic investment in America. It's mind-blowing. Listen to what Scott Bessent, your Secretary of the Treasury, said about it yesterday.
The President believes we can achieve more together. This is the abundant vision he has for the future. He wants everyone to be a part of it. Thousands of businesses are now catching the President's vision. Since he assumed office in January, companies have pledged to invest trillions into the U.S. economy. President Trump has secured more investment for our country in 100 days than President Biden did during all 4 years. Entrepreneurs, too, are starting to understand what the President is trying to accomplish. March saw one of the highest levels ever recorded for new business applications. Many of these men and women, like many of you, are grasping that America First is the blueprint for a more abundant world.
Yeah. By the way, if you're looking to invest and you had an eye on that Rite Aid building in your neighborhood, well, it could be available for you. If you want to invest in that location, you're like, how does Rite Aid have that location? It'll soon be available. Rite Aid preparing to file its second bankruptcy less than 1 year after exiting its first in June of 24. CEO Matt Schroeder, according to Bloomberg, says that Rite Aid says that it intends to file for bankruptcy after completing its first restructuring plan. The company's been unable to secure funding to continue operations. Some areas will begin to close stores very quickly. And apparently, Schroeder cites a dramatic downturn in the economy with increased cost. There's not a sudden downturn in the economy. People buy pharmaceuticals and they buy things that Rite Aid sells. It was a lousy business plan. Meanwhile, one last thing. So much going on, and I wanted to get to this. I want to get it in. The FCC chair, Federal Communications Commission, Brendan Carr, says local news and news done by people like me is more trustworthy than news done by the mainstream media. Really? No kidding. You mean I'm more likely to tell the truth than somebody on Chicken Noodle News? That's right. Listen.
So are you threatening to pull their license? Wouldn't that be a pretty drastic step?
Well, it's not a threat. That's a penalty that is in the Communications Act that if you don't...
But when was the last time the FCC pulled a broadcast license?
Yeah, it's been a long time, and I think that's part of the issue. If you step back, trust in the national mainstream media is at an absolute low right now. That's not just my view. Jeff Bezos himself did an op-ed where he said that. But what's really interesting is that actually local stations, local TV stations have a lot of trust. And so the agenda that I'm trying to run at the FCC is to empower those actual local television stations to serve the public interest. Because what we've seen is you've got national news media, ABC, NBC, CBS, and they're exercising more and more control over those local TV stations. And I don't think that's a good thing for the country. So we're trying to reverse that.
Yeah. Trust of the national news media is at an all-time low. No kidding. How did that happen? COVID? Russiagate? The treatment of Donald Trump in general? I don't know, but they've destroyed their credibility, which is why nobody's there anymore, and there are places like this. You come here to watch programs like this. Good idea. Coming up next, Will Tebow will be here, former Army Ranger. He says, drones, we're not ready for the next war. What do you make of it? We'll talk about it straight ahead on the Steve Gruber Show. right, back to it now. What about the future of warfare? Huh? What about it? Will Tebow is a former Army Ranger, director of the American Military Project at Claremont. He's joining me now. Will, nice to see you on the program here, and you've got a warning for us. You say that these drones, I mean, I've seen all these cute light shows with drones, right? All these cute light shows with drones that do all these coordinated movements together, make big pictures and so forth. But it makes me wonder, if they can do all those nice things, they can do wicked things as well. And you say we're not ready for the next war. Why do you say that?
Well, first, let's envision all of those drones and those light shows you see in China or other places around the world having bombs on them, and each of them being an explosive device that can destroy a tank, a $1,000 drone destroying a $20 million tank. That's the new battlefield algebra of modern warfare. And I don't think America is ready, partly thankfully, because we haven't fought that kind of war in Ukraine. But we also are burdened by a lot of legacy systems that are holding us back. And there's a good sign that Secretary Hegseth, Secretary Dan Driscoll in the Army, and the administration understands what time it is. Because if we're going to deter and, if necessary, compete in a future war, we need mass amounts of attritable drones on hand in order to defeat our enemies. That's what it's going to take. It won't be the most sophisticated, exquisite weapon system. It will be software-enabled warfare that can compete even when typical systems fail.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, Will. I mean, I'm low tech. Couldn't you just jam the signals so that those drones cannot communicate properly? Is that not something that can be done? I mean, I'm just asking as a civilian.
It's possible, but a lot of these drones, and frankly, many of the drones that you see now in the front lines in Russia and Ukraine, communicate via a direct radio antenna that it works via line of sight. So it's actually less susceptible to typical GPS or electronic warfare jamming, probably than some of those drone light show events you would see. But it means they're actually more resilient to those counter UAS effects. But that means we should appreciate
simply put, then, Will, if you can get a tower in the air, and maybe it's a mobile tower in the back of a truck, right? Then you just get that tower and you put it up, boom, and you've got line of sight. You can reach a long way. You could reach, 2, 3, 4 miles, depending on how tall that tower is. You got a 200-foot tower coming off the back of a truck that you can put in the air. You're not susceptible.
Than that, Steve. I mean, you're talking 25, 30 kilometers.
All right.
That, again, redefines the battlefield, right? If American forces went into Ukraine today, we'd probably still operate under the assumption that we need to get about 3 kilometers away from the Russians in order to destroy their tanks with a system like the Javelin, a soldier-based, ground-based anti-tank weapon. In reality, the Russians and the Ukrainians both are operating with drones that allow them to strike targets, again, 15, 20 kilometers away. That means the threat radius of the front lines is a lot greater, and it's a lot, it's a lot newer. It's like nothing we've experienced, frankly, since World War I, when we dug trenches, we had systems that could touch out to each other and create a real no man's land that makes traditional battlefield maneuver really hard.
Yeah. The good news, if there is good news about the Ukraine-Russian war, based on what you've just told me, Will, is that we are watching it. We, being the American military and other militaries around the world, watching how this works, understanding the threat radius, as you just mentioned, and learning everything we possibly can about the use of drones and how they can be more effective going forward. We're not oblivious to it. We're learning from it, wouldn't you say?
That's the imperative, and it's a hope and prayer, frankly, because we, all of the discussion for almost 3 years was all the weapons and money and people we could or should send to Ukraine. There was not as much discussion about the lessons and the technology that we can take out of Ukraine that can affect our own military and our own warfighting preparedness, and frankly, our own deterrent. That should be the number one mission of the government, is to understand how, a supposed adversary in Russia fights, understand what a threat environment would look like on battlefields of the future, and then prepare our military, as they say, left of bang, so we don't have to learn all of these lessons the hard way. I'm sure we would learn the lessons, but let's not make it be at the price of American blood.
In all of this, you support Pete Hegseth as a Secretary of Defense. Pete Hegseth took a lot of heat for this signal situation, and you know, the mainstream media tries to put out a news story every day trying to undermine Pete Hegseth. Donald Trump doesn't seem too interested in the mainstream media take on any of that. He's keeping Hegseth where he is. What do you think about Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense?
He's doing a great job. You know, Steve, going back 10 years, when I was a lieutenant in the Army, I would hear about transformation and innovation. I would hear about the need for the Army to change in order to be ready for the next war and to be ready for the 21st century. But year after year, you know, national defense strategy after national defense strategy, past secretaries of defense, generals in the Pentagon, and supposed national security experts never actually changed anything. Pete Hegseth does it. He is actually changing things. His transformation initiative memo from last Thursday is a perfect example of this. You know, he fit in 3 or 4 pages, everything from bans on diversity to ensuring we have stockpiles of unmanned systems. And he just did it. And that's the kind of leadership we need. It's disruptive. Perhaps it is messy sometimes, but it is absolutely necessary.
All right, Will Tebow, former Army Ranger Director of the American Military Project at Claremont, RLTW there, Will. Greatly appreciate you being here, my friend. We'll have you back because there's more questions I want to ask about the war in Ukraine and some of the things that we're learning from watching this, from whatever distance we're watching. And I think we're probably right there next to them, but that's just for another day. Will, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so there's your wake-up call. He likes Hegseth. That's good news. But he thinks we need to update our systems. Probably true. We don't want to look like Russia in the next war, flat-footed and incapable, like they were going into Ukraine, all right? Still to come, Justin Goodman will be here, advocacy for public policy. At the White Coat Waste Project, we're going to talk about the murder of beagles at the NIH, all right? It's still to come. Well, could our outspoken friend Marjorie Taylor Greene be running for Senate in the state of Georgia? There's speculation now that MTG is going to take on John Ossoff next year. Kind of circumspect about it, she has been. Fueling speculation that she's going to do it, she said that in a weekend fundraising email that described a possible campaign as the biggest fight of my life. The biggest fight of my life. Greene, who overcame media and Democratic smears and sneers to win her House seat in 2020, has become an influential voice in the GOP caucus. She's a firebrand. She is a polarizing figure in politics. She stands her ground. She doesn't care. She stands on what she believes. Before anything further happens, before I move to the next step, I need to hear from you. I need to know if I should run for Senate in Georgia. And if I should, I need to know if I will have your support or not. This would be the biggest fight of my life, the most important, the most brutal, and the most high stakes. The radical left, the fake news media, the rhinos, the globalist billionaires, they would all come after me with everything they've got. But I'm not afraid of them. Marjorie Taylor Greene running for Senate potentially in Georgia. That sounds like she's in. Do you agree or disagree with this statement? Capitalism has produced the greatest increase in human wealth, living standards, and overall flourishing. Good question. You ask 10 people about capitalism and define it, you'll get 10 different answers. Do you understand it? Do you know what it means? Hillsdale College is offering 40 free online courses. Free courses, subjects like the Constitution, the Roman Republic, Genesis, C.S. Lewis, and understanding capitalism. In just short 7 lectures, you'll learn about profit and loss, private property, and the rule of law, and why capitalism, at its core, is built not on greed, as they will tell you on the left, but on freedom and human nature. It's free, it's thoughtful, it's Hillsdale. GruberForHillsdale.com. Go there to enroll, no cost, easy to get started. GruberForHillsdale.com. You want to learn something today, be the smartest guy at the get-together Friday and Saturday? Well, go to GruberForHillsdale.com. It's free, and you're going to love it. Capitalism is freedom. All right, when we come back, puppies murdered by the National Institutes of Health and paid for by you. The conversation straight ahead. All right, beagles. I had beagles when I was a kid. I kind of liked them. You know, we had Pokey. That was the first dog I remember when I was just a little kid, right? Just a little kid. I remember that dog. Nice dog. Beagles are great. I wouldn't own one because they're sweet and they're loving, and then sometimes they just disappear for 3 days and come back stinking like a skunk. And that's just the way beagles are. But that's no reason for them to be mistreated in a laboratory, which has apparently gone on for years and years and years. Now it's come to an end. under President Trump's administration. Joining me now, Justin Goodman, the Senior Vice President of Advocacy and Public Policy at the White Coat Waste Project. Good to see you, Justin. Thank you for being here.
Always a pleasure, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Beagles are about the sweetest dogs ever. Like I said, I don't have time to own one because I can't chase it for 3.5 miles that way and have it run around wagging its tail for 3.5 miles coming the other way for 3 days. But there have been these brutal, inhumane torture of these dogs for more than 40 years at the NIH under the direction of Anthony Fauci, if I'm not mistaken. Tell me what they've been doing to these poor dogs.
Yeah, Steve, again, thanks for your support on this issue for so many years. Back in 2016, White Coat Waste's first campaign and investigation exposed in-house dog testing inside the federal government. At the time, the NIH had 2 active laboratories. One was a lab run by Fauci where they were infesting puppies with fleas and flies and letting their wounds fester. And we were able to shut that one down. But the other one that we just ended now under President Trump had been going on for 4 years, where they were over 2,100 beagle puppies were purchased, brought to this NIH lab in the Beltway here in Washington, and then had bacteria pumped in their lungs to cause pneumonia. They had their arteries sliced to bleed them out, to put them into septic shock, and then they were allowed to suffer for 96 hours. The ones who died, many died, and the ones who didn't die were killed. And this is the project now that President Trump has just ended. This was the last in-house laboratory.
So hold on. That's horrible what you've described. What is the justification for that? What are we trying to learn? What are we trying to prove?
They were doing experimental blood transfusions on these dogs. So they would slice them and then they would pump different types of blood, obviously dog blood, back into the dogs after they bled them out. And 2,133 dogs at least were killed in these experiments, and we got nothing for it. So we've been fighting this lab, filing lawsuits against the NIH, filing Freedom of Information Act requests with the NIH, working with members of Congress like Congressman Greg Steube from Florida, Rand Paul, Senator Joni Ernst to shut down this project. And this past Sunday, Jay Bhattacharya, the new director of the NIH, finally went on TV and announced they had closed this lab. This was the NIH's last in-house dog laboratory and the last painful dog laboratory inside the entire federal government. Now we're setting our sights on the dog and cat labs outside of the government that are receiving taxpayer funding. So this is a great start. NIH is cleaning up his own house. President Trump picking up where he left off during the last administration and whacking this wasteful spending on animal experiments. And we're hoping to make more progress in the near future.
Let me ask you this, because I'll play devil's advocate for a moment here. Don't know about the beagle experiments. That sounds pretty out there. But some would argue that there is a place for animal experimentation, whether it's rabbits or beagles or rats or mice, in today's science. Do you agree that there's some place for it? Is there no place for it in your mind?
So our opinion, and it's in our name, is that this is incredibly wasteful. And if you look at what the NIH, the FDA, the EPA have said over the years, including in the last few weeks, Trump's FDA commissioner, Trump's NIH director, Lee Zeldin, the head of the EPA, have all commented about how animal experimentation is wasteful, inefficient, outdated. It doesn't actually improve human health. So our challenge to these government agencies, to these, we call them the white coats, the animal experimenters, is if what you're doing is so valuable, find your own funding, but don't force taxpayers to foot the bill for you torturing puppies, kittens, and monkeys in government laboratories when the return on investment is so horrible for taxpayers. Let the private sector fund this. Let pharmaceuticals fund this if they feel it's absolutely necessary. Let Bill Gates fund this if he wants, but we certainly don't want to be forced to pay for it. It's cruel, it's wasteful, it's ineffective, and it doesn't have any place in the federal government.
We've made some, and I go back to General Motors. They used to strap dogs into the front of a car and run it into a wall, right? And they did a lot of those different sorts of things. Not to pick on General Motors, animal testing was kind of the way it was done back, in the day. But with the advancement of science and so forth, a lot of this animal testing has become obsolete. I think is a fair argument for a lot of people, Justin. But some would still say that testing on mice for cancer development and rats and so forth. So you just want it out of the government completely. You don't want the government funding any of this. And yet it's the government that funds most universities and so forth and studies. So I don't know how you get to a completely clean break from that. How do you get there?
You cut the funding. You start slashing these grants and contracts. I mean, that's the problem. We've seen some progress, right? The first, I think, 3 weeks of the Trump administration, maybe they cut funding for transgender animal experiments that we exposed. The NIH has wasted over $250 million creating transgender lab animals and experimenting on them. The NIH just went in and with the stroke of a pen slashed those grants. They've started to cut grants to China. This is something we don't even need an executive order for. The NIH, these other federal agencies can go in and, like I said, with the stroke of a pen, cut the funding for these programs. The problem with animal testing is not that it doesn't continue because it's effective. It continues because it is big business. The federal government is the largest funder of animal testing in the country and the world. The U.S. government, $20 billion a year. So this is big business. There's colleges and university, Harvard, Columbia, University of Pennsylvania, who are raking in hundreds of millions of dollars a year each just for animal experimentation, and they want to keep the spigot on. So they're in Washington lobbying for more money for these wasteful animal experiments that aren't helping anybody except the people who are lining their pockets to do them.
You know, President Eisenhower warned us about such things in his farewell speech in January of 1961. He said, don't trust experiments and studies that are funded by the government because they'll only return the answer that was paid for. I'm paraphrasing a bit, but that's what President Eisenhower said. He warned about all these, government-funded studies, whether animals are involved or not, and this seems to be a byproduct of that. Here's the money. Got to hang on to the money. Do whatever it takes to keep the money, and who pays the price? The animals do. I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, this is big business, and there's an easy solution. Cut the funding, stop the money, stop the madness, and we're thrilled that Trump has come in, picked up where he left off in 2021, and is cutting these wasteful animal experiments at the NIH, at the FDA, at the EPA. But there's more work to do. Some of these projects have been refunded. Even in the last few months, they've been, they're on autopilot. They've been renewed. So we're proud to be working with the Trump administration to cut the funding for these wasteful programs, and it's going to benefit taxpayers and it's going to benefit beagles. So who can argue with that?
There you go. Justin Goodman, Senior Vice President Advocacy and Public Policy at the White Coat Waste Project. You can look him up online. White Coat Waste Project. Justin, thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Really appreciate it. There you have it. On the positive side of that, how about some great dog food for your pet, made in America, not made in China, not Chinese junk. GreatLakesPetFood.com, best dog food we've ever had in this house. I've got a herd of hare farmers, 3 of them. They all eat. GreatLakesPetFood.com. Check it out. It's made in Michigan, my home state, so it's American-made, good quality pork, turkey, chicken, the real thing, not garbage and fillers. Check it out. GreatLakesPetFood.com. Best dog food you're ever going to own. I'll be right back. All right, back to it now. You might have seen this AI-generated picture of Donald Trump over the weekend as the Pope, right? The left-wing social media lost its collective mind, of course, but most people I talked to, including Catholics, chuckled or didn't care, were very mild. They didn't, it's like, whatever. Is there a sense of humor left on the left? And it wasn't something Donald Trump created. It was an AI-generated thing. I think he reposted it and it went out there. He was asked about it yesterday. Here's what he said.
Some Catholics were not so happy about the image of you looking like the Pope.
Oh, I see. You mean they can't take a joke? You don't mean the Catholics. You mean the fake news media. Not the Catholics loved it. I had nothing to do with it. Somebody made up a picture of me dressed like the Pope, and they put it out on the internet. That's not me that did it. I have no idea where it came from. Maybe it was AI, but I know nothing about it. I just saw it last evening. Actually, my wife thought it was cute. She said, "Isn't that nice?" Actually, I would not be able to be married, though. That would be a lot. I'd have to the best of my knowledge, popes aren't big on getting married, are they? Not that we know of. No. I think it's the fake news media that, they're fakers.
They're fakers. Nobody took the picture seriously. Nobody would take the picture seriously. Why would they? Doesn't even make sense to take the picture seriously, right? At any rate, the process of selecting a new pope doesn't really begin until tomorrow, when they become sequestered. The cardinals all get sequestered tomorrow, Wednesday, and they're basically locked in until they come up with a new pope. And you wait for the color of the smoke to change coming out of the chimney. I'm not Catholic, but I understand the process, and I respect the historical significance of it. As the leader of the Roman Catholic Church, will be selected by the cardinals. Make that decision. Meanwhile, over in New York, I have some mental health concerns for one Tish James. She, of course, is one of those that has gone after Donald Trump, fulfilling her campaign promise that she would take on Donald Trump and take him out, trying to prosecute him time and again. Now Tish James finds herself on the receiving end because of actual crimes called mortgage fraud. Apparently she's committed mortgage fraud, and it was all exposed, and it's out there now. And she's facing charges, potentially, felony charges of mortgage fraud. And she's freaking out. She's not doing it very well, maintaining herself, that is. Here it is.
And you want me to sit in my seat and stand idly by and allow this craziness to happen? You could come after me if you want. But you elected me to stand up. You elected me to use the law. You elected me to go to court. You elected me to continue to challenge this administration. You elected me to stand up for the least of God's children. You elected me to continue fighting on. And I will fight on.
She seems to be having a tough time. She's going to fight on, apparently. Okay. Tish, can somebody get a welfare check for Tish? Easy, Tish. Don't worry, you're getting free rent out of the deal, and free food. It works out. Free entertainment too, if the TV works. So President Trump stood there, as he often does, in the Oval, taking all sorts of questions, kind of impromptu questions from President Trump. He said more food is on the way for Gaza. He wants to do more to help the people of Gaza. Here's what he said yesterday.
Get some food. People are starving, and we're going to help them get some food. A lot of people are making it very, very bad. If you look, Hamas is making it impossible because they're taking everything that's brought in. But we're going to help the people of Gaza because they're being treated very badly by Hamas. Thank you very much.
Yeah, there you have it. Being treated very badly by Hamas, who is, again, paid for by Iran, as we've discussed in this program at length already today. So the president trying to find, an accommodation to help the people there. It's been a difficult sledding, that to say the least. It's been a difficult sled. A lot of arguments online now about a new piece of legislation being put forth that would limit criticism of Israel. I would have to disagree with that. I'm a freedom of speech kind of guy. I don't like anti-Semitism. I don't like racism. But I like censorship a hell of a lot less. So, freedom of speech. My mother always taught me, let them talk. That way you know what you want nothing to do with. Let them talk. Let them run their mouths. Let them show the world what they are and who they are. Right? All right. Did you know scammers can literally steal your home right out from under you? The FBI calls this house stealing. It is a growing real estate scam targeting American homeowners. Could be you. And here's how it works. Pretty simple. Criminals forge your signature on a document, use a fake notary, pay a small fee, and file it with your local recorder's office. By doing that, they basically make your mortgage disappear. And just like that, your home title can be transferred out of your name. Then they take out loans using equity as collateral, even sell the property behind your back. You don't even know this is happening until those nasty letters show up in your mailbox. You're probably like, yeah, this is not right. Don't even worry about it until it's too late. Let me ask you, when was the last time you looked at your home title or checked on it? If you were like me, my answer was never. It's exactly what the scammers are counting on, and that's why I trust Home Title Lock. Their $1 million triple lock protection helps keep your home and equity safe. Here's what you get: immediate 24/7 monitoring of your property, urgent alerts if there's any change and if fraud should happen. The U.S.-based team will spend $1 million to restore your title. And the best part, I've teamed up with Home Title Lock to give you a free title history report so you can find out if you're a victim now. Access your personal title expert, a $250 value for just signing up. Go to HometitleLock.com. Use the promo code Gruber. You'll save money. HometitleLock.com, promo code Gruber. Get the protection and peace of mind you deserve. HometitleLock.com, promo code Gruber. Back with Brock and Sports in a moment. All righty, back at it now. Let's check in on sports with Brock Palmbush.
With a look at sports, I'm Brock Palmbush. In the NBA playoffs last night, a pair of game ones in round two. In the Eastern Conference, the New York Knicks rallied from 20 points down to force overtime, and they beat the Boston Celtics in the extra period, 108-105. Game two of the series is on Wednesday night in Boston. Out west, Aaron Gordon's three-pointer with 3 seconds left gave the Denver Nuggets a 121-119 victory over the Oklahoma City Thunder on the road. Game two of the series is on Wednesday night in OKC. In the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs, there was just one game. The Toronto Maple Leafs held on to beat the Florida Panthers 5-4 in Toronto. The Maple Leafs lead the second-round series 1-0. Game two is Wednesday night in Toronto. And in Major League Baseball, there were 9 games last night. American League winners were Kansas City and the Athletics. National League winners included Atlanta, Milwaukee, and the LA Dodgers. That's a look at sports. Back to you, Steve.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for that, Brock. Here's a headline. I don't even know how this happens. Illegal alien Hiram Baquidano Rodriguez. I say that because it's funny. Rodriguez, an illegally present Honduran national. That's an illegal alien. Arrested by ICE agents after authorities dropped charges against him. Well, what were the charges? A series of charges, including child abduction, home invasion. The court saw fit to drop his most recent charges, but he's been convicted of numerous crimes in Virginia and a calamitous hazard to our Virginia residents, said ICE Enforcement Removal Operations Washington, D.C. Field Office Director Russell Hott. Officials said his charges include abduction of a person with intent to defile, burglary, entering a house to murder, rape, etc. They dropped the charges. Yeah. Every one of his convictions represents another one of our neighbors that Rodriguez had victimized. ICE Washington will continue to prioritize public safety by arresting and removing criminal alien offenders from Washington and Virginia communities. Good job. That's the way it should be. This part of the program brought to you by my good friends at Wolverine Water Systems. If you're tired of dingy clothes and stained showers, get to WolverineWaterSystems.com. For 75 years, they've been Michigan-made, Michigan-operated. WolverineWaterSystems.com. You tell them I sent you on over. We'll be back after this. right, here we go. Kicking off another brand new hour of the Steve Gruber Show. Glad to have you along for the conversation. Three big things to know this hour. Number one, here in Michigan, apparently you're less likely to turn in that 10-cent can than you used to be. We'll talk about that. Number two, a 67-year-old man still missing for almost a week now. Dale Fasking, I guess. Wasaki County wrecked his motorhome, walked away not to be seen for a week now. And number three, the jury in the trial of the former Grand Rapids police officer Christopher Scher continues today, deliberating his fate. The jury sent home after 5 hours yesterday. We'll be digging deeper into this in just a few minutes. Brian Morley will join me, an attorney, former police officer in the city of Flint. He had one opinion about this case, and now it has changed, having heard Christopher Scher on the stand, among other things. 12 jurors will decide his fate. We'll get into that more coming up. But first, how about this? Every day there's something that is shocking to me. Shocking to me when it comes to what we're doing with illegal aliens. I mean, it shouldn't surprise me anymore what I hear and read and see based on the behavior of the last several years and based on the behavior of apparently Democrats who seem to think that illegals have as many rights here as I do, right? But the FBI has revealed that Venezuelan officials created an operation to train Tren de Aragua to come here and kill Americans. Seems nobody's talking about it. I think you deserve to hear it. Here it is.
An FBI assessment that was unclassified that said that the Maduro regime is using and planning to use Tren de Aragua terrorists to carry out assassination plots on American soil. Now, very few in this room covered that. I'll let you all ask yourselves why you didn't cover it and why your editors didn't assign that story to you. Something I think you should think about on your own. But this is a earth-shattering piece of news. The Biden administration imported the terrorist army that our own FBI assesses is planning assassination strikes on American soil against critics of the Maduro regime. Those are the terrorists that President Trump is finding and apprehending that our Democrat judges and Democrat activists are trying to keep on U.S. soil. Tren de Aragua has the same legal status as Al-Qaeda and ISIS. MS-13 has the same legal status as Al-Qaeda and ISIS. These are foreign terrorists operating on our soil. And our gratitude to El Salvador for agreeing to take custody of these terrorists is immense.
Terrorists sent here to target Americans. Stephen Miller's talking about it, but you don't hear it anywhere else. Yeah, and like I said, Democrats, they honestly, they're more dedicated to going to El Salvador to look out for a guy who, at every, Albrega Garcia, at every turn, more dirt shows up on this guy. Not a good man. Not from what I can tell. Not a good guy. And they keep protecting him, defending him, going to bat for the likes of him. It's the hill they want to die on, apparently. Democrats, like I say, more dedicated to illegals than the people born and raised here. Listen to this.
Jeffries denies that he told Democrats to stop going to Central America. Others are planning trips, including a visit to Honduras.
I'm planning on going, and I think we should continue to go. So I think it makes sense for us to check on them, make sure they're okay. And at a minimum, since there's a multi-million-dollar contract with El Salvador to house these people, shouldn't somebody go take a look and make sure we're getting our money's worth for this?
Shouldn't somebody make sure that Baltimore, Maryland, that you represent, is in good shape? Congressman Ivey? Shouldn't somebody check on the good people of Baltimore, Congressman Ivey, to make sure that they're okay there? What were these cities like? What were these cities like 100 years ago? 50 years ago. Maybe not great 50 years ago, but 100 years ago they were good. What has gone wrong? One of the problems is addiction, powerful drugs. You've seen the videos, haven't you? People wandering around, drooling, or just standing frozen because of powerful chemicals that come across our southern border and poison our people, kill them, more than 100,000 a year. Maybe more. Who knows? I think a lot die that are just falling through the cracks. Addictions in China, meanwhile, really aren't any. Not by comparison, not that we hear about. I wonder why that is. Pam Bondi has a theory about it. Listen.
Yeah, and Larry, it's interesting. People in China don't get addicted to fentanyl because they're shipping it to our country to kill 18 to 34-year-olds. 75,000 Americans are dying every year because of fentanyl. It is a weapon of mass destruction, in my opinion. It's destroying lives. It's costing our taxpayers trillions of dollars, and it's killing our kids, 18 to 34, #1 cause of death. The precursors are all made in China. It's shipped to Mexico, into our country, or through now India, other routes, ports of entry, USPS, coming into our country, and they're killing our kids, and it's got to stop. And it takes 1 grain of fentanyl. I put it in here to show you earlier. You can barely see it. It looks like 1 grain. This is salt, not fentanyl. 1 grain is all it takes to kill an American citizen. And that's what these people are doing.
1 grain. Yet there's not that problem in China. Isn't that interesting? They don't have that problem in China. But they have that problem here. I submit to you for consideration, as I have said before, is that not an act of war? Seriously, is that not an act of war to send all that poison into this country by way of Mexico? Is that not something we should be a lot more angry about? 100,000 Americans die. Some by accident, right? Some by accident. And yet here we are. Here we are. Coming up, we're going to talk about this case in Grand Rapids. Christopher Schur gets in a scuffle with Patrick Layoa at about, 8 o'clock in the morning? Suspect is well beyond the legal limit, doesn't have a license plate, fights with the police officer, wrestles. A shooting takes place and the suspect dies, and the police officer's life is over because he's put on trial for murder. The jury's out on it. My next guest is not, however, Brian Morley, a lawyer, former police officer in the city of Flint. He knows tough times. You earn your money at 1% of the time, he said. He'll be with me next. All right, so the jury was sent home after 5 hours of deliberations yesterday in the case of former Grand Rapids Police Department officer Christopher Schur, charged with murder, charged with second-degree murder, also a backup charge of voluntary manslaughter that the defense argued against. And so this case involves a police officer who stops a guy early in the morning, who's obviously intoxicated, refuses to cooperate, rolls around, wrestles with the officer, tries to take his taser, wrestles for a gun goes off, the suspect is killed. Shortly thereafter, Schur is dismissed from his job and charged with murder. Joining me now is Brian Morley. He was a police officer in the city of Flint for a number of years and now is an attorney based in Lansing. Brian, good to have you back on the program. It's been a bit, my friend, but we've talked about this case in the past, haven't we?
We have. Good to hear from you again, Steve. Good morning.
Good morning to you. All right, so when you first came on, you thought this was a bad situation for the police officer, but you've watched the trial. You saw him take the stand, which you thought was maybe not a great idea, but he did it. I mean, generally, if you're charged with a serious felony like this, defense attorneys generally don't put you on the stand, but they did. Your opinion has changed in this case. Tell us what you think of the trial so far and what your opinion is today.
The trial itself is fascinating, and I hate to say that because there's so much on the line. Yes, without sounding wishy-washy, at first blush, I thought this looked like a bad shoot. I think you and I talked about that off the record. As you dig deeper, or as I dug deeper into it, I think he ended up in a situation where it was one of us is going home tonight. And if you're not going to capitulate and be arrested, I have to do what I have to do to make sure I'm going home tonight. I think the trial and again, obviously we're not there, but what I've seen and heard in the trial seems to be presented rather fairly. There don't seem to be too many outside influences. And yes, I agree taking the stand was a risk, but it seemed very genuine to me from what I saw of it.
Yeah.
So it's a tough situation.
Yeah, you carried a badge in the city of Flint, right? How many years did you do that?
Yes. 4 years.
All right, so you, I think you shared with me a story from one of your supervisors. Said, look, most of the time it's an easy job, it's easy money, but the 1% of the time is when you earn that money as a police officer. Flint, no easy assignment. You probably saw some sticky situations.
Times were a little bit different back then, but yes, and I think all officers see sticky situations. I don't know if I've said it to you before, but I've always been of the belief that no officer wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to shoot somebody today during work. Contrary-wise, I think every officer wakes up and says, if it comes down to you or me going home tonight, I'm going home tonight. And I think that's what happened to the officer in this situation. I think they focused on the fact that he got himself into this situation, and I personally disagree with that. Everything was valid. It was a valid traffic stop. It was a valid criminal investigation. You can call it ticky-tacky criminal, but, no license or improper plate. But then you're in that situation, and the witnesses that said he shouldn't have pursued him. There's nothing wrong with that, but the simple fact of the matter is he did pursue him, and they ended up in that situation. So in my take is the inquiry should start when they're on the ground together, not whether or not I should have done this or, gosh, I should have waited for backup. Simple fact of the matter is I'm in a life and death situation now, and that's where the inquiry should start.
I'm looking at the list here. So far in America this year, more than 20 police officers have been killed in the line of duty. By the way, the majority of those, which is unusual from years past, gunfire, the leading cause from what I can tell here. Look, if you're wrestling with a suspect who's trying to get your taser, who's trying to get your gun, they're uncooperative, they're fighting with you on the ground, and they get shot, I don't see how this case was ever charged. I'm kind of shocked by it. Look, why would anybody be a police officer today? He goes out and does what we asked him to do. Go do your job. It's a dangerous job. He was hired to do this job, and as he conducts his job and does it kind of the way it looks like it's supposed to, said he followed procedure. He was trying
I agree.
to subdue a suspect in a crime, and he doesn't know what the suspect's hiding, but he's obviously uncooperative and intoxicated. I mean, why would anybody be a police officer today, Brian? Why?
Well, it's hard, and I think you and I talked about this the other day. I don't know why. Although if we take a little bit of the emotion out of it, you said it at the beginning of your statement right there. If somebody goes for your gun or somebody goes for your taser, the taser is the big issue here. And candidly, I'm not familiar with tasers, but if somebody goes for your gun, that's easier. He was going for my gun, and if he got it, I'm dead. The taser takes an interesting. I don't want to say interesting. I'm not minimizing any of this, but it does take a twist.
Because if he can immobilize the officer with the taser, then he can get the gun. But
Exactly.
it's not a direct A to B. It's an A to B to C, right? It's not a direct line.
Absolutely, but it's not a far line. If I'm incapacitated, even momentarily, I think the taser knocks you out for what, 3 to 5 seconds, something like that.
Yeah,
that's enough.
Yeah.
So, and if you're working in real time, boy, I don't want to say this, but who are we to judge? I'm scared to death. I'm in this situation. I can't figure out why I got in. I don't have time to figure out why I got into this situation, but I'm in this situation. And he said it, and he seemed honest on the stand. I think he said, I don't think I would have gone home that night.
Exactly. Brian Morley, attorney in Lansing, former police officer in Flint, was there for a few years, understands the challenges of the job. Appreciate your insight. When the verdict comes back, we'll have you back. Brian, thank you.
I would look forward to it.
Greatly appreciate it.
Good talking to you, buddy.
You too. I guess my question to Brian next time, would you have put him on the stand? I think most defense attorneys would not put somebody on the stand. It's not a normal strategy. Maybe it worked. We're watching the trial of Christopher Scher. Back in a moment. All right, so everything we discussed on this program, back in early 2020 when COVID was coming in, turned out to be true. It all turned out to be true. I told you at that time that it was pretty clear that this had come from Wuhan, China, from a lab leak. It wasn't at the wet market, although it's possible somebody left Wuhan and went to that wet market, but that was the line of transmission. But it was clear that somebody had left contaminated from that lab. I also said it was pretty clear that the infection had been in the United States since before Thanksgiving 2019. That also turned out to be true. And the reason I did that, Amy Acton was the State of Ohio Director of Public Health. And on the 12th of March, a day before Donald Trump declared a national emergency, she said there were 100,000 Ohio residents she believed that were infected and that the doubling rate was every 6 days. Well, if you work that math backwards, it took you to early November, late October for a release of that illness in the United States. That all turned out to be exactly right. My math worked. I was right. I take no joy in that because a lot of people suffered through the COVID pandemic, being locked down and so forth. Tomorrow on X, on Spaces, I'll be with Dr. Peter McCullough tomorrow night at 9. We're going to discuss COVID. We're going to discuss the bird flu. We're going to discuss Bobby Kennedy running Health and Human Services. So Dr. Peter McCullough will be here. By the way, one of his colleagues at the McCullough Foundation, epidemiologist Nicholas Hulsher, now says, according to the reports he's been looking at, 600,000 Americans died as a result of getting the COVID vaccine. We'll discuss that as well. Don't miss it. Tomorrow night at 9 on X. Follow me on X and you can come to the page. 9 o'clock tomorrow night. Peter McCullough and I, a space event, 9 p.m. You don't want to miss that. Tell your friends. Up after the break, from the great state of Wyoming, we have Congresswoman Harriet Hageman joining me. Federal overreach, federal district courts out of bounds, all sorts of things to talk about right after the break here on The Steve Gruber Show. Diving back into it now on a Tuesday. Look, there's a lot going on ever since Donald Trump took the oath of office at something like 140 different executive orders. But we need to get to that one big, beautiful bill, or it's all going to be for naught. It has to be codified. It has to be passed as legislation, and they're working very hard on that right now. Joining me now from the great state of Wyoming, Congresswoman Harriet Hageman. is here. Congressman, nice to see you again.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, let's talk about the bill. What's the roadmap look like right now? At one point, we thought Memorial Day. Now we're hearing more like the 4th of July could be the date that he signs this legislation. It's very important for it to get done so that all this work that's been done isn't just lost, right?
That's correct. And the committees of jurisdiction are individually addressing their particular parts of the bill. So last week I'm on the Judiciary Committee, and last week we worked from 2 o'clock in the afternoon until 11:30 at night, marking up the segment of the bill that comes from Judiciary, primarily associated with immigration funding and the budget. And then today we're going to be working on natural resources and that portion of the bill, and focusing on the budget and funding related to natural resources, whether it's associated with the Bureau of Reclamation or coal or whatever it may be. We've got a whole variety of amendments and the bill that we're going to be addressing today, and several other committees have already completed their work. That is with regard to the House.
Right.
The Senate hasn't yet taken up the bills, but they will be.
Let me start with the immigration comments you made there. Obviously, Wyoming's not a border state, but every state's impacted by what has happened during the Biden administration and the invasion, if you will, of this country. Now, Donald Trump came in. He's issued executive orders on the border. We'll specifically start there because every step of the way, whether it's the border or something else, it seems that there are these federal district court judges who think that they can issue nationwide injunctions on anything the president does, and they go court shopping. Another great example, a Louisiana federal district court judge said, you can't stop funding of Ivy League schools. Congresswoman, what Ivy League school is in Louisiana? None come to mind for me. And so this is just, they're completely out of their lane, aren't they?
Absolutely. And what they're doing is they're taking the authority of really what is in the United States Supreme Court. Yet even in the United States Supreme Court, a party has to convince 5 of the justices that they're correct on the law and the facts. What these district court judges are doing is they're basically crowning themselves as the final arbiter of these decisions, when that is not the way that our court system is set up.
Yeah, it's not constitutional in any way now. 2 or 3 ways to cure this. One of the ways is put legislation through, and there's some effort to do that in the House and the Senate to curb this. The Supreme Court could also weigh in, but we need to get this under control. The federal district judges don't have the right to dictate how Donald Trump governs this nation, do they?
Well, that's one of the problems. It's interesting to me when you listen to leftists talk about this. They talk about the sanctity of the separation of powers and how Donald Trump should not be criticizing the judiciary because the judiciary is a separate branch of the government. Well, when you look at the Constitution, the only court that is mentioned in the Constitution is the United States Supreme Court. And
Correct.
then it is Congress that establishes the lower courts. And we have set up a system where we have district court judges and appellate court judges. The purpose of the district court judges is to decide the cases in front of them and the parties related to the parties that are in front of them. That's why it is such a rarity for judges or courts, district court judges, to issue nationwide injunctions, because that would mean that a judge in California is having a party come before it and dictating what happens in New Jersey. That is not the way that our court system is set up. And that's why we have filed and are pursuing the No Rogue Judges Act, which would limit district court judges' ability to issue nationwide injunctions. Really, they need to stay in their jurisdictional lane, and what that means is that they need to decide the case on the parties in front of them. The other thing that they're ignoring is they're absolutely ignoring standing requirements. As you just noted, in Louisiana, there aren't any Ivy League schools, so they don't even have jurisdiction there.
Right.
But the other thing that is very, very important is under Rule 65, which is the rule on injunctions, the parties are required to post a bond that would cover the costs associated with if they are eventually found to be wrong. So you and I are both anticipating that many of these injunctions are going to be overturned. Yet in the meantime, they are costing the government millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. And nobody is being forced to post a bond, which is exactly contrary to what Rule 65 says.
So they're not following the rules anywhere along the line, which is deeply disturbing. Now, I believe that we'll get this right. Because, look, it shouldn't happen this way. District judges are basically local judges. They have their district. That's it. They don't get to rule over the entire country. And judge shopping, obviously, is a thing. Now, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about Wyoming, energy state. One of the big things that Donald Trump did early on, declare an energy emergency in America. You've got coal, you've got oil, you've got natural gas, you've got the Powder River Basin, which is loaded with energy. How important are these energy policies for the state of Wyoming and for this nation?
For the nation as a whole, energy security is national security. We're the largest coal producer in the nation. We have very, very clean coal. As the president referred to it, beautiful clean coal. We have an abundance of it. We have, as you say, oil and gas. We have uranium. Wyoming is one of the largest energy producers in the nation, and we keep the lights on. The fact is that you cannot use the intermittent resources and expect that you're going to be able to power a first world country. Yet we have a lot of people on the other side who are, hell bent. They're absolutely convinced that we're going to live on, be able to survive on nothing but solar panels and windmills, and it's not true. And it is going to substantially affect the prosperity of this country. Energy security is national security. We want affordable, reliable energy, and that's what we produce in Wyoming.
Yeah, we need vast quantities of cheap energy to power this economy. Speaking of the economy, I want to ask you a couple more things about that. You go back 2 weeks in time, and CNN and MSNBC were all crowing from the top of their lungs that it was going to be the worst April since 1932 on the stock market, and doom and gloom was on the way because of the tariffs. Well, apparently that didn't happen. The stock market turned around. The S&P posted 7 gains in a row over the last few days. It's been a pretty remarkable turnaround. The economy doing pretty well. The tariffs, yes, we need to get to a conclusion and come to some sort of a strategy coming out of the tariffs. But so far, from where I stand, it looks as if they've worked for the most part so far. You say?
It's bringing these countries to the table. And for those who say tariffs don't work, then why do other countries rely upon them? The other thing that I've got to say about the left-wing media is, why do they always bet against the United States of America? Yet they do. It doesn't matter what the issue is. They are going to bet against the United States of America and try to basically spread panic and fear far and wide. And that makes absolutely no sense to me. Yes, we know that there are going to be some bumps and bruises with this, but the fact is, where we have been going, the direction we've been heading is veering off a cliff. We're almost $37 trillion in debt. We have had a trade imbalance with countries around the world for decades. We've had someone who's coming in who is putting America first and fighting for our values and our issues and to protect this country. The reality is that a strong America makes for a safer world, a more prosperous world. And yet every single policy decision that this president makes, these folks want to not only bet against him, but find every single way that they can to criticize and attack and say that the end is nigh. And that is just simply not what's happening.
It's
and we
just
don't believe
not
him
the
anymore.
case.
We don't listen.
No, not the case. Congresswoman Harriet Hageman from the great state of Wyoming. Beautiful place, by the way. Good water this year, so the trout fishing will be terrific again this year in Wyoming. Congresswoman, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate it. There you have it. I just looked at the snowpack for Wyoming. It's terrific. Ivy and I should spend some time fly fishing there. What do you say? We'll be right back. Club U. All right, back to it now. Look, I just checked the snowpack in Wyoming for 2025. It's average, which means that's good. It's at average, which means they'll have plenty of water in the rivers and a lot of good stuff going on. So, Ivy's joining me now. She likes to talk about water levels. Why? Because it means fly fishing. It's springtime, which means we think about fishing adventures, of course, morel, mushroom hunting, and so much more. Ivy, good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
What's on your mind today?
Well, you have my mind on fly fishing now.
Well, there you go.
What is the best place, do you think, to go in the springtime for fishing?
Alaska?
Oh, really?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, springtime there is not till a little bit later, like end of the month, maybe into June. I mean, it depends on water levels. If you have a big snowpack in places like Northern California, great rivers, right? Rainbow trout, all that stuff. But a couple of years ago, they had, like you saw the pictures, they had 29 feet of snow on top of some houses. That means the runoff is rough and tumble till mid-June. So you got to be careful. And then by some places like Montana, if the water levels get lower, then the rivers get low by mid-August. And so therefore they have river closures. You just got to monitor the water all the time.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've seen a lot of great videos. Some places like in Vermont, which we've never been. I've never been.
I'll go.
That look absolutely stunningly beautiful to
We can
fish.
see Bernie.
Oh, yeah. I want to get right on that one. It's funny, when we were in D.C. once, you could see that Bernie was walking towards you, and you're like, okay, get the camera ready.
I got the picture. I should show people that tomorrow. I had a beard back then, but Bernie looked just as crazy then as he does now, because he was, and he is. Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to get your take. You did see probably yesterday that the president signed the executive order to ban gain-of-function research.
Correct.
So what are your thoughts on that? I think it's obviously because of what occurred with COVID and the science that happens with gain-of-function. Perhaps we shouldn't be screwing with these types of things.
Yeah, I agree with that, but here's the question. Okay, does it stop gain-of-function only in the United States or globally by American operations? And I say that because it's pretty clear that we had gain-of-function operations in Ukraine, for example, a lot of different labs doing who knows what, because it's basically off the grid. It's out of sight, out of mind.
Okay.
So I'd have to look at his executive order.
So
Did he stop it everywhere?
I have it here. This is what the order says. It ends any present and all future federal funding of dangerous gain-of-function research in countries of concern like China and Iran, and in foreign nations deemed to have insufficient research oversight, empowers American research agencies to identify and end federal funding of other biological research that could pose a threat to American public health, public safety, or national security, prohibits federal funding.
But if you back up, I get all that gobbledygook legalese stuff, but you back up, sounds like it's pretty loosey-goosey there. That might pose a danger, this or that, so...
Well, maybe it's saying that you cannot perform these sorts of research in countries like China or Iran.
Well, right, but what about Ukraine? What about the Czech Republic? What about Argentina? Wherever you might go. I don't know where they might go. It sounds pretty loose. And so if the country has proper oversight, then you can continue gain-of-function research. So it didn't stop gain-of-function research at all, now did it?
No, it doesn't seem that it did. And I just wonder, is there, what is the benefit of, maybe I'm obviously I'm not a scientist, so I'm like, why do we screw with these sorts of viruses, we're going to find a cure for something that could possibly happen, and in the meantime, we're creating this deadly disease.
Well, I'm not sure what they were doing with COVID, but it's obviously quite clear that everything that I said on this program, that you and I discussed beginning early 2020, was exactly right. It was a lab leak, as I said from very early on, almost immediately. I said it's a lab leak from this facility. They try to say the wet market. Well, the wet market's a place that people go for lunch. It's possible the person wandered from the Wuhan Institute of Virology into that wet market, bought pangolin for lunch, which is weird, and then wandered back. So they tried to say it was the wet market. It wasn't that. It didn't jump from a pangolin to a person. It might have jumped from a person to the pangolin that was already deceased.
Right.
Anyhow.
Did you see yesterday, we kind of talked about it a little bit, that the Ferrari yacht that...
Oh, yeah, I saw that. The sank, $4 million Lamborghini yacht.
Lamborghini, you're right.
Lamborghini yacht sank right by Miami.
There was a bunch of influencers on the boat, apparently, and then all of a sudden they were beginning to capsize.
I saw it online, and I made a comment on some social media post about it. But that's going to be an expensive insurance claim. Yeah. And somebody wrote back and pointed out something pretty astute. because the boat was, before it's saying absolutely packed, shoulder to shoulder people on there. He said, yeah, that's cute, except if the boat's only rated for 25 people and you got 50, the insurance claim will be denied.
I wonder. I've got to
I
go
don't
look
know
at
what
that.
happened. It started taking water. That's all I saw. I saw all these idiots standing on the. They're not in very deep water, right? No, and they're right near the shore. They've all got their life jackets on, as if you can't swim 50 yards. Come on. I appreciate they put their life jackets on, I suppose, but I like that person's observation. Well, you've got way too many people on that boat, way past, because we own boats. It says this boat's rated for 12 people or 14 people, whatever it's rated for.
And
right?
Safety Sam over here, make sure that there are no more people on the boat than there should be.
That's right. We got to be careful out there. But a $4 million, it wasn't even a yacht, really. It was just more of a power boat. $4 million, Lamborghini.
Might have thought about, making sure that you didn't exceed your limit if that was actually what happened. And
I don't know.
But
it was just pointed out as a possibility of why the insurance company would say, D-died. There you have it.
Well, I did have a sign by for us, but I don't think we have enough time now with our favorite, Crockett, Jasmine Crockett.
Oh, yeah,
about,
you got to have a hold her for tomorrow.
Yeah.
You love her, don't you?
Well, she always has some very insightful things to say, so I just like to bring her onto the show so we can talk about her.
She has insightful things to say. And she incites riots, more accurate. Anyhow, Ivy, good to have you here. Check Wyoming. Check your calendar.
Yes.
We'll look into that. Wyoming in the spring is Michigan's fabulous in the spring. Wyoming's great. Montana.
We have not been to the Tetons, actually, which I would love to go, which is in Wyoming, correct?
There you go. Wyoming, yeah. South of Yellowstone National Park. You got it.
Thank you,
All right,
Steve.
Ivy, love you. Thank you.
Love you.
There you have it. We'll take a break. We'll be back. By the way, Ivy and I did not get to the mushroom hunt yesterday. We got postponed because of a previous engagement. We will get to it tomorrow, and I will give you a full report. Love the rain. It's keeping them nice and cool and hydrated. I'll be right back. Well, it looks like John Fetterman's no longer a favorite of the left after they rallied in his support, right? Kara Swisher, Mehdi Hassan, among those who staunchly defended the Pennsylvania Democrat after his stroke in the middle of the campaign, 2022. No longer a favorite, John Fetterman. New York Magazine's Intelligencer published a lengthy piece Friday titled All by Himself, which says how Fetterman insists he is in good health. But staffers past and present say they no longer recognize the man they once knew. He was a progressive darling, earned fanfare from many moderates and conservatives over his pragmatism on various issues, they claimed. But he continues to support Israel, and they hate him for it. Many critics have taken aim at New York Magazine's hit piece and believe Fetterman's backing of Israel, which was prominently disseminated in the report, is the reason why liberals are suddenly abandoning him. And it's a problem for them. Tech journalist and podcast host Kara Swisher, one of Fetterman's most vocal defenders, after NBC aired a report shedding severity on the severity of his stroke. Sorry to say, but I talked to John Fetterman for over an hour without stop or any aids, and this is just nonsense. But now she's turned on him. They don't like him anymore because he doesn't stand with them. One former staffer recalled overhearing Giselle on speakerphone that December saying to Fetterman, "Who did I marry? Where's the man I married?" Oh, they're just throwing dirt on him. Wait till they push him out of the party. Well, maybe the stroke brought common sense to him. I don't know. A higher level of consciousness. I don't know. That's the story I'm leaving you with today. Something to consider. Something to consider. John Fetterman, more conservative than people knew. All right. Fight the good fight. Keep the faith. I'm Steve Gruber. This is the Steve Gruber Show. God bless America. And remember, only you can save America.